Welcome everybody. Let's just get cracking straight with the basic definition of what is MEL. So monitoring, evaluation, and learning is a collection of systems that can help to really effectively deliver your projects, demonstrate results, and learn from your activities and experience. So the breakdown of this is monitoring, the systematic and routine collection of data on project resources, activities, and results. And this includes the routine monitoring of progress towards a project's targets, its expected outcome, and its impact. Evaluation is the assessment and analysis of all of the project resources, activities, and results that can help to assure or inform the project's design and help to make decisions to help it to achieve impact. And learning is the process through which evidence and information is reflected on and used to address any evidence gaps, identify what works, what doesn't work, and to also help to continuously improve the ability of the project to achieve results, but also to share that beyond the project and help others to learn from it. So why is MEL essential at the project design and proposal stage? So here's a kind of visualization of a typical MEL cycle. And it can often start with data collection, analysis of that data, and then reflection and learning based on your analysis. And that can help for assessing the approach and then refining your approach and objectives. So because this is very linked to project design, it could be really helpful to consider MEL at an early stage. As you can imagine, it can help to identify lessons from past work. So you can be using evidence from your past projects or other people's projects of what works and figure out what you can do to maximize learning. It can also help to clarify the project's logic and impact. By setting out these MEL tools, you can show how activities will lead to measurable results and long-term change. And it helps to define what success looks like for your projects so you can establish really clear objectives, indicators to measure, and ways to track your progress. It can also help to look at this now because it will help you to prioritize what your data collection plans are. So what do you really need to monitor progress towards your objectives, and what do you really need to fill knowledge gaps? And this is all about realism. So this information can help you to create realistic timelines, realistic budgets, and resourcing based on the strategic priorities that you've identified. And importantly, it can really help to boost the credibility of your proposal. So it shows that your project is already committed to accountability and has an evidence-based design. MEL tools and systems can be used beyond just the proposal stage. We expect them to be used at project startup and throughout the life cycle of the project. So getting the tools well developed now will really help because once a project starts up, it will make everything easier, including throughout the annual reporting. And in Ocean, we'll be expecting projects to report on their log frame and standard indicators annually. They'll give a half-year report to give progress updates. And at the end of the project, you'd be giving a final report with all of your results and against the things that you had planned. Ocean will provide feedback on reports and ongoing support to grantees. And a lot of that is based on the MEL information that you've started to develop here in your proposal stage. And selected projects might undergo monitoring and support visits, and people will be, anyone that's going out for a monitoring visit would be using your log frame as one of the key ways to understand how your project works and how you manage your project. And MEL really supports Ocean as a program to measure its impact. So good project level MEL really supports us to demonstrate the impact of the funds and communicate that to key decision makers in UK government who could make the case for continued funding. And this is why we're introducing this year Ocean Standard Indicators for all Ocean projects. And the aim is to establish a shared framework for tracking progress towards our program level goals. The indicators will be used to track results relating to ocean goals, but also the Blue Planet Fund and UK international climate finance goals. And the idea is that these indicators will help to demonstrate the combined contribution of all ocean projects towards ocean's intended impact, which is to place the ocean on a path to recovery, enabling local communities and nature to thrive. The standard indicators will cover a variety of topics, but they're all related to our overarching goals. So that's around marine environment protection and restoration, reduction in multidimensional poverty, climate adaptation and resilience, capability and capacity strengthening, generating knowledge and evidence, and strengthening and improving policy and planning. So this is what the standard indicators look like, and you can see this full list of indicators in the standard indicator guidance and template. There are 9 headline indicators, which are in the darker teal, and many of them have subcomponent indicators, for example, 1A, 1B, 1C, and we'll be asking applicants to select from across multiple headline indicators and categories wherever possible. When you come to this part of your application, you should select as many ocean standard indicators as is possible within your planned project scope. This selection itself won't be assessed by the expert committee, but it might be considered by the programme board when they're making their final award decisions. For the requirements for this part of your application, you'll be asked to select a minimum of 5 indicators from the Excel template of standard indicators, and then set targets for all of those selected indicators. If you feel it's not feasible to measure this minimum required number of indicators, you should provide a strong justification for this in your application. And when it comes to this section, it's really important to remember how you're going to collect disaggregated data when it comes to project implementation. And UK is committed to reporting on sex, age, location, disability status, or Indigenous peoples and local communities status. So remember to plan ahead for that. But most importantly, you should be ensuring that the selected indicators are feasible for you to measure within the budget and resources planned in the project. And we've had a few questions through already around whether the standard indicators go into your project log frame. No, not necessarily. These are selected and reported in a separate form from the project log frame. So you do not need to put these into your project level log frame. I mentioned the importance of budgeting and making sure that your budgets are realistic, and you should consider the costs of MEL when you're developing your application. So include M&E costs in your proposed budget. There is a budget heading for this in our template. We recommend around 5 to 10% of the budget goes towards your M&E costs. This is kind of typical for many projects. And if your budget does have a significantly lower or higher allocation than this, you can provide justification for this in the template itself. Some of your M&E costs can be allocated to other appropriate budget lines. For example, the staff costs, consultancy costs, and travel subsistence costs. So use your judgment as to where it's best placed. Other items such as the cost of data collection, running a household survey, a baseline survey, should be included in the budget lines in the M&E category in the budget template. Also to mention here, audit, which is audit costs, which are required annual audit for partnership grants. These should be included in the M&E category too. And there's details in the finance guidance on what the suggested guidelines on audit costs should be in your application. If you're applying for a grant of £1 million or over, you will also need to include a budget for an independent final evaluation, and that should be commissioned by the project lead organisation. And this is, as opposed to the audit, which is looking at your financial situation, this is more focused on your project results. So the minimum requirement here is that you would be planning for a final evaluation from an independent evaluator by the end of your project. Now, onto the main tools that we use in the Ocean application form. So there's the pathway to change, which is the written description of how the project will lead to a desired change. And that's a written application answer in the application form. There's the theory of change diagram, which is the visual depiction of how your project will lead to change. So a visual depiction of your pathway to change. And that should show some of the problem drivers, the enabling conditions, the potential barriers and links between project actions and results. That should be uploaded as a PDF. There's the log frame, and that's a monitoring tool that's laid out in a table, and that's set out in a Word template. And the standard indicators. And these are the indicators that I mentioned that will be used across all projects in the Ocean portfolio to help us to measure progress towards our common objectives. And that can be found in an Excel template. The key MEL tools are covered in section 7 of your application form. Many of these are widely used project design tools that are used to support MEL through project cycles and across other donors and other types of project. Questions in the application form include the project pathway to change, which I mentioned before, but also a description of how you'll do MEL. And then there's the required uploads, so the Ocean standard indicators, the project log frame, the project theory of change diagram, and the project work plan. And there's templates provided for all of these apart from the theory of change. And all of these tools are going to be used throughout the life of the project to support MEL. So just a little look at the MEL questions that you can expect to see if you haven't already looked at the application form. The first is the project pathway to change. You can see there's some guidance text there on what we expect you to enter here, and you can also find more information in the MEL guidance. But overall, it's about explaining the why and how of your project and explaining how your project will lead to its end of project outcome and the long-term expected impact. Then we ask around your project monitoring, evaluation, and learning plans. So we don't expect this to be an add-on. It really needs to be integrated into your project. So we're asking you to describe how you're going to monitor and evaluate in your project, and you can make reference to any of the approaches, tools, and techniques you'll adopt. Who's going to be responsible? If you have a MEL focal point, for example, you can talk about that here. Next, a quick look at the log frame template. So we have a log frame template available, and you can follow the instructions in the template and see the MEL guidance for a full example of a typical Ocean log frame. The key points to remember here is that you need to define one end of project outcome, define 2 to 5 outputs, and make sure that you include indicators and targets to measure your progress. But please do see the template itself for a more detailed explanation, and we'll cover some best practices later on. For the standard indicator template, again, there's an instructions tab there, so please follow the instructions there, but what you can expect to do here is fill in the first tab with selecting which indicators that you will measure through your project. And in the second tab, input the targets for your project as a whole for each of those selected indicators. And then a third tab to specify what those indicators are going to be for the particular country. So if you've got a multi-country project, you will have to fill in several of the different country tabs. But if you've just a single project, you can fill out just the second tab with the targets for your project as a whole. And then there's the project work plan. So again, a template is available for this and there are instructions available. But briefly, all you will have to do is input the different activities that you're planning under each of your outputs. Input the timing of those activities by blocking out in color the time periods you expect to do them. And the best practice here is not to include too many activities under each output. So we wouldn't expect more than 10 here. And if you feel like you have a lot more than 10, it would be best to combine those into perhaps work packages or whatever works for you. But that would be a better level of detail for the expert committee's assessment. And then the theory of change diagram, that's that PDF upload. So you can go to for 1 to 2 pages of PDF. We don't provide a template. We want you to see the MEL guidance and other resources online for examples, but be creative here. And so that's the main parts of the MEL section itself. But throughout the application, there are also questions that are related to MEL. So, for example, in section 4, the project approach and design, there's the current situation and the problem that you're going to address, and the project description and the project methodology, the theory of change, the log frame, and the work plan that can all feed into there. So it's really important to make sure that your answers to these sections really talk to your theory of change, log frame, and work plan. And then similarly, the questions around the changes you expect to see in marine environment and in multidimensional poverty or climate adaptation and mitigation, these will also be very related to the answers and information that you're putting in your theory of change and log frame. So make sure there's not contradictions between these tools that you're using and that they all speak to each other. And the final section to be aware of is that the project methodology and the evidence your project is based on. So Ocean really wants proposals that are using learnings and evidence from past projects to make the case for the approach. So highlight where there's good evidence and explain here. Highlight any novel approaches. Explain why they should be trialed and what evidence there is that it's a good idea to trial them, and then explain how you're going to generate any new evidence from them and share that more widely.